us, even though we haven't finalized our contract with them yet, just to make sure that they hit the ground running when and if they become the official part of our team. I think that's everybody from our end, Katie.
Great. And I just wanted to double check, is Mayor-elect Bray or Commissioner Ronaldo Henderson, have they joined us? They RSVP'd, and I would be amiss to miss them on the hello.
I'm here.
You are. Hello. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
All
Glad
right.
to be here.
And okay, so let's get started. So as I mentioned, the purpose of this meeting is to focus on the city-owned portions of the City Block project and to generate ideas about how to maximize activity and people and new business and kind of functionality, creating a really dynamic center, a town square. Eric, would you put up the site plan that we have? I think many of you who have been following this project are familiar with our concept plan, but I think just as a refresher to kind of get everybody on the same page, 60% of this site actually is remaining in city control, will continue to be city owned. And those are made up of 3 specific components: a central public parking area that we are designing to be flexible for gatherings and events and festivals, a green space, a public park along Water Street, kind of looking towards the murals and in the direction of the riverfront. And then the third component is along North 2nd Street, which is a hardscape public promenade. So these are the 3 components. They remain city owned. They will be operated as a city owned town square. And so we have a good understanding of kind of what these components are based on the goals and the initial feedback that we have gotten from the public over 18 months of public engagement on this project. When we started this project, we had the following goals. One was to create a central destination, a new destination to generate people and to come to this site. The second one was we knew that public parking was still a very important use for our community. And so retaining public parking was always part of this project from the very beginning. Third was to create activities and generating places for gathering and community. So that town square concept that many other small urban and larger urban areas have. And then the fourth goal was about the specific corner of 2nd and Broadway, and knowing that that was unique to our community in terms of its importance, its history, and kind of the energy of that space. And so what we had heard from the public through several public sessions and through over 25 stakeholder listening sessions, those were kind of the goals that we heard about when thinking of this site. In addition to thinking about how this site and other redevelopment sites connect downtown with the river, Carson Center to Convention Center. It is one piece that starts to kind of build that out and using development to create a stronger urban community. So those are the components. And we want to kind of take the next step in this conversation to say, we have these public areas, the public parking area, the green space, the hardscape. We need your help kind of fleshing out what those details look like. How do you want to use that space? How do you not want to use that space? And what are kind of the elements and functions to really kind of generate that destination, that active town square. So that's the purpose of this meeting. And we have until 6:30. I want to be respectful of your time. It's dinner hour and you have family time. So we will be getting out of here at 6:30. But this is by no means the last time that we have conversation. We are always available to answer questions, to set up meetings, to talk with you, to connect you with Weyland's team. We are here and we're always, ears are open. We want to hear your feedback. With that being said, I do want to kind of say from the very beginning that the focus again is on the public components. And for this meeting, in the interest of time and also making sure that we spend our time generating these ideas, we are not going to talk about today about the private development uses. So if you have comments or questions or concerns about the hotel occupancy, the mixed use buildings, those private pieces, you know, we're always open to hearing your feedback, but please contact me separately to talk about those outside of this meeting.
So Katie, just a quick
yes.
question. Will there be a public meeting to allow people to weigh in on some of the other parts of the project?
Absolutely. So Mayor-elect Bray, you know, this meeting is being recorded. We will have it up on our website. We have the City Block email that people can always, you know, submit comments to, and that is available, you know, over the next week or so, where we can continue to generate feedback and input. That is also an option. All right. So with that said, I'm just looking over my notes. Oh, and so one kind of housekeeping thing, as we're going to transition, and I'm going to turn it over to the Weyland team and for Eric and Barry to kind of walk through. If you have questions, if you have comments, if you would like to speak, because this is virtual and we're learning as we're going, what I would ask you to do is to put that in the comment function at the bottom ribbon. It says chat. If you could submit your questions, submit your comments, Tamara is going to be monitoring that and kind of making sure that we are able to respond to all of that feedback and kind of help that shape discussions. So if you can put it in the chat function, and then we will come back to it and either address questions kind of as a group or give opportunity for everybody on the phone to speak. All right, any questions before we kind of jump in? All right, Weyland team, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, well, I'm going to start, Katie. This is Barry. And I just want to sort of reiterate a couple of things that you said as we go through some of the design features here. So as you said, we see, when I say we, I'm speaking sort of on behalf of the city a little bit, because we have worked collaboratively with the city staff for the last year or so on this. But I think we all envision this block as an activity zone for downtown, the town square concept, as you will. And there's been a lot of discussion, as Katie mentioned, about the private elements of it, the hotel and the residential and the mixed use building. But in fact, as Katie said, you know, a majority of this block will remain in public hands. The city will own it. The city will pay for it. The city will operate it. The city will use it for a variety of ways. And we're excited about that and want this to be not just a space that is used primarily for parking most of the days and evenings, and then occasionally there's a festival or an event, but really on a 24-hour basis, there's activity, there's people, there's things to do, there's things that entice people to come down here and spend time here. So as Katie mentioned, the hardscape along Second really is designed to ultimately take that very strong Broadway and Second corner and make that connection out to the convention center in Lower Town. The softer space along water, which is a little bit less active, certainly relates to the waterfront park and the murals and the boats that are disembarking there. So there's lots of different ways to use this space. And I'm not a landscape designer, but I've worked with a number of them and argued with a number of them in the past. And public spaces are often used in ways that are able to be used because of the design. And certain things are more difficult to use because of the way they're designed. So it certainly makes more sense to look at how the city wants this space to be programmed. What types of activities are appropriate here? What do you guys see as being important? And then have the design reflect those programmatic uses so that nobody says a year from now, gee, you know, wouldn't it be nice if there was a little spot for, you know, a three-piece combo playing Friday afternoons, but there's no space for that. Or, you know, we really wanted a space where we can sit and look at the breadth of the murals, but that wasn't designed in. So when we talk about what types of things would you like to see, we're not talking about, you know, brick pavers versus stone pavers. It's not so much the design elements, but it's more so the types of uses that this space can, depending on the time of day or time of the week, could accommodate, and the things that the people of Paducah would like to see accommodated as much as possible in this space, understanding that for the most part, it's a good portion of it is public parking. But again, public parking also provides a basis for other things that could be done, whether it's showing movies in the evening, or certainly the festivals that you guys have, or farmers markets, or things that a large open flat space can accommodate, a nice green space can accommodate, and a linear, what we call hardscape, paved surface can accommodate. So those are that's the kind of input that we're looking for tonight. And as Katie said, not just tonight, but as we move through the real beginnings of the design aspect of the public space. So with that, Eric, do you want to go into a little more detail about where we are?
Yeah, hi everyone. I appreciate everybody being here. My name's Eric. I'm an architect. I've had about 17 years of experience doing major planning projects, urban design, architecture. Just a little background. I've been with Weyland for about 5 years or so. I grew up in Kentucky in Elizabethtown, went to college at UK, moved to Chicago, and then moved back to Kentucky in about 2013, 2014. I moved to Louisville, and kind of been with Weyland since then, around that time. So, and like Katie said, we've been on this project for over a year or so, and I'm excited to listen and learn a little bit more about where this is going. I just want to keep reiterating, you know, this is a concept. This is not anything that's completely baked. And the nice thing I think about collecting public opinion and insight is this project is going to be better because we're all listening and learning from what we have seen as precedents that work at other places, but what's uniquely Paducah. And I'm really excited to share these things, but I don't want anybody to think, oh, this is exactly how it's going to be. It's still a very conceptual level, and the more that we can listen to whatever input that you can help us with, the project's going to be more and more uniquely Paducah, which is, you know, to Katie's point, to make this a town square, an arrival, a destination, an identity is paramount to not only making the development work, but also the future of what Paducah is going to become. So can everybody see my little mouse cursor? I hope you can. I usually talk with my hands or with paper, so I'll try to do this as best I can. So yeah, this is 3-phase projects with some built forms that bookend this, you know, really important public space. What Katie said is exactly right. Again, there's a centrality to this. There's a doorstep, there's a front door, there's a welcome mat that we're hoping that this will start to infuse into the city. So we obviously, in the many investigations that we've already had and the development work that's already gone into this, we started to look at what the site was historically, which was, I believe, completely built out, but there was a hotel that actually ran along Broadway. You know, before the levee wall, obviously this was a floodplain, so obviously you're going to block the river from flooding a town. But the interesting part is I think we have the capability of infusing new life from a riverfront destination possibly, hopefully, when riverboat traffic can start to dock here overnight. So this site, not only from a vehicular standpoint, pedestrian, but the way that you would experience a true riverfront community is multifaceted. And what I'm more and more excited about is to see how all those connections can start to work. So the idea, I think, is to really take what's already working really, really well in Paducah, which is basically this Broadway swatch and this sort of urban energy around Market House Square, and to try to bring it down the block. We're opening up a corner and trying to make a promenade hardscape that would hopefully be able to infuse a little bit of urban energy around this corner, as well as starting to set the scene to what these new developments and this multi-use park can start to become.
Eric, why don't you flip to the sort of ground level view of that space?
Yeah.
Again,
Okay. I will. Yeah, folks. I'm going to turn on the 3D model now. So again, this is going to be a schematic representation of what we have. So don't again feel like we're completely finished with this. So let me see if I can share my screen here. Okay. All right. This is better. Okay.
Well, actually, I was thinking about the rendering that showed the activity along that hardscape as you were talking.
Yeah, that's there's a visualization that we did. Yeah, I can go back and forth. Let me see if I could open that up. I was having a lot of fun with my my computer earlier, so I'm hoping this isn't going to crash. So if I fade away, I'll come back, I promise. Okay, let's see if I can do this. Okay, so this would be a view, obviously, from Broadway. Kind of you finished dragging the gut. You're heading back downtown. This is the idea of possibly what the development is going to start to feel like. The idea is again to infuse this the block that would make it relational to what's already there from a massing standpoint, materiality, and to really stitch this corner back together to make it feel like what it once was.
So go to the one from second, looking down second. I think that's what I was trying to match up when you were speaking.
Came in. Hold on just a second, Barry.
I'm sorry, I'm giving you directions over Zoom. It never works well.
That's okay. It's a new world. We'll get it. We'll figure it out. I'll do it one more time. Hold on, folks. Okay, let's see if I can do this. Share that. Okay, there you go, Barry. You want to talk about this a little bit?
Yeah, so I'll start and then you can jump in. But I think I just wanted to let people know that, you know, as we're thinking about the uses of this space. So here's when we talk about a linear park or a hardscape or a promenade, you know, those are sort of squishy terms and it means different things. But as you can see here, you know, we're just in this little rendering, you know, it could be places where, again, there's a space for little mini performances. There could be space for public art. There could be spaces for outdoor dining, either service from a restaurant or people just taking an ice cream and sitting there. So there's lots of different ways to animate this space and activate the space. This this is the most active corner right now. And again, this doesn't necessarily mean the gazebo goes away. It could happen even if the gazebo remains there. And we can talk about that later as well. But a very active space that sort of joins all of these different elements of this block with the remainder of Broadway. And as we've been saying all along, that a beginning of a strong connection to both the river and the lower town and the convention center activity that hopefully will continue west along 2nd Street. I see a question. Yes, this is looking down 2nd Street from the corner of Broadway and 2nd.
Yeah, so this would essentially be the idea of extending that market house energy right along that pivotal corner to really make it feel, it's kind of like where this band stage was where the gazebo is now. And just like Barry said, again, this is a high level conceptual of what the gazebo is already kind of doing. It's an icon. It collects, there's a civic use to it, there's a public use to it, there's a personal use to it. So we're hoping to not, throw that away. There's some use that's obviously still really needed on that corner as an identity. So we're hoping to bring a lot of that down.
The other point I want to make, and then I think we do want to just open it up to comments so we don't dominate this discussion, is that I think that I'm pretty sure that one of the things that Katie sent out, the points was incorporating public art. And public art is really important in a lot of the projects we do, but particularly here because Paducah is an arts community. And we really do want this block to celebrate the creativity and the artists and the artistry that occurs in Paducah. We're going to do that inside the buildings. We're talking to the art galleries and the museum about showcasing some of the existing art, but also all around this block, ways to incorporate and to celebrate the arts community. And the reason you don't see any of that here is because we're not designing that. Those are things that should come from the arts community in Paducah. So we can talk about locations and different ways to showcase that, but having that is really important. And as much input and creative direction we could be given, that'll be really important. So Katie, have we hit sort of I guess just the one other thing is that we talked about the parking lot, and we know that this block is used heavily when there's festivals downtown, and this block will continue to be used when there's festivals. We're meeting with the festival folks, I think, later this week. But making it easier to, whether it's hookups for food trucks or for stages or for beer gardens, whatever, trying to put those infrastructure pieces, whether it's electricity or lighting or water or whatever, into the open space so that when it's needed, it's available. That's not inexpensive, but if that's important, then certainly we can design that in. Katie, is there anything else that I want to hear from other people. So anything we haven't sort of focused on or brought people's attention to?
No, I think that's about, that's a good overview. And I have been watching the chat function to kind of see some of the questions that are coming through, and maybe we can move to Tamara and as a group kind of discuss some of those questions. I think also, we talk about specifically this corner. And again, one of our goals was to preserve the activity and the energy of that corner. We'd love to hear from this group a little bit more specifically about your experience. Like, how have you experienced this corner? What does this corner mean to you in terms of activity and use? And also, where can we actually continue to build off of what is good about this location and strengthen it and make it more functional or more active or more beautiful. We'd love to kind of get your thoughts about that also. So maybe that's where we can maybe, first off, I'd love Tamara to kind of talk about some of the questions that we've been getting through the chat, and then maybe start to hear from people directly about this corner in particular and what you would like to see when thinking about how all these pieces work together.
Oh, this is a great group with lots of ideas and everything. Perhaps let's go, if you could pull back to the site plan view, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, second.
There's questions about the relationship between who's using the parking, and are there going to be issues with noise with regard to the occupants of the hotel or the mixed use? Are there concerns about that? And then how is this lot accessed? Is it from strictly the maiden alley, or is it elsewhere? Those are kind of some basic questions at first. I thought they're important to cover to give everybody a little, make sure everybody is oriented correctly. And then probably, and that covers quite a few things. And then questions about, are there going to be benches and places to sit so people can look at the flood wall and look at other parts of of downtown?
Let me start out. Let me answer a couple.
Yeah, there's lots.
Yeah, let me start with a couple, and then I'll let Eric take a couple. So the issue of noise is a really good question, and I speak from experience because some of you may know about 4th Street Live in Louisville, and that's a very noisy place as it gets later in the evening, and there are 3 or 4 hotels surrounding it. It was a pretty dead space, to be honest. So when that area transformed, there were lots of issues that perhaps we didn't think through enough about noise. So again, this is a city space, and how we deal with how the city deals with what types of activities occur there, how much amplification there would be when there's music events, when that music gets turned off. Those are things that we'll all have to figure out, and because there will be people living here, there will be hotel guests. It's an urban area, so people know that urban areas are active, and good urban areas are active well into the evening. But that's an important issue that, again, is a collaborative issue between how we will run our developments and how the city operates the public space. The issue of benches is a very easy answer. Yes, there will be many places to sit, whether they're all benches or tables and chairs or movable chairs. There's lots of different ways to sit, but there was a very famous urbanologist named Holly White who spent years looking at public spaces in New York City in the 60s and 70s. And he came to the conclusion that people sit where there are places to sit. So this space, I can't speak for Katie and Tamara, but I'm sure they will agree that the ability to comfortably sit here and spend time here is one of the key elements of the way this space will be designed. And I think there was a question about access into the parking. Eric, do you want to talk about that?
Yes. So the site as it is now, it is designed to have access on at least 2 sides from the Broadway Maiden Alley side. The development now is accessible wide enough for 2 cars to pass. That passes all the way through to Jefferson, so there will be another sort of access point from Jefferson. The way the plan is now also is where you can kind of see these sort of red bands. Those are kind of idea pavers. Bollards would be able to sleeve in and open this up for access for any sort of festival or food trucks or tents or things like that. So the idea of another access point along 2nd Street might to start make more sense as we go along. But as it is right now, the green space along Water Street is not accessible, but there's 3 points of access on the site. Vehicularly, I should say. If you're a pedestrian, I feel like you can just walk wherever you like.
Well, I think that's an important consideration, right? Where we want to create clear connections for pedestrians and how they move through this site. And I think one of the benefits of it is that it offers multiple kind of access points and, you know, destinations, whether it's the river or it's the excursion dock or it's Maiden Alley or it's the geyser or the Quilt Museum. You know, thinking about how people move through the site and to other destinations definitely should be a consideration. And I'd love to hear from folks about, you know, what are those important connection points? What are those important view sheds that we might want to, you know, maximize and have this design either elevate or perhaps, you know, redirect if it's something that it's not favorable.
There's a lot of comments saying that we really enjoy the music that's downtown, particularly where it is in the gazebo, and wanting to know if that is still going to be an option. And I would suggest yes, and yes, and yes. One person observes that the gazebo isn't big enough to handle bands, and that's true. It's not. So perhaps maybe we can work on these ultimate spaces to be designed in a way that it can accommodate various size bands, as you know, even dare I say pickup bands, or, you know, impromptu opportunities. Other questions are about water and water fountains. I know the horses for the carriage have water and have water needs. Where would we accommodate that? And I throw that out to any and everybody to comment on where would that be ideal. But keep in mind, water features are very expensive to maintain. Let's see. We've also got some big shout outs for more outdoor dining. And then also there is some questions about have the buildings architectural skin or their identity, has that been finalized? And I'm not sure, like Eric or Barry, if you could touch on that.
Yeah, I can touch on that. The answer is no, they have not been finalized. We've been focusing primarily up to this point on square footage, on potential tenants, how many hotel rooms, how much restaurant space, all of those good things, and what that means in terms of the massing of the buildings. We have not yet gotten into exterior design. We will, and we will, and we need to. We would anyway, but certainly part of the agreement is that we have to submit those to you guys for your approval, just like any other architectural review process that would take place. So that's the last piece of it. Once we know what our building footprint is and what we need to have inside the building, then we'll begin to work on options for the exterior.
There are several members of our design committee that are on this call and have been working towards historic design guidelines and how, thinking through kind of those details about when new development comes, how do we ensure that that development complements the existing historic buildings, the scale, the heights, the massing, all of that. And so we're really pleased that Weyland has been willing to work with us on this and ensure that what the new buildings, while will not replicate what the historic buildings are along Broadway and the other kind of historic core, they will complement it and fit nicely in with our environment.
Tamara, can I go back to the question about water features
Yes,
just for a second? So, and I assume the question was about water features as opposed to a drinking fountain. But
yes.
if it's so the issue of water, I personally, I just love water features. I think any space that has a water feature is just a nicer space, and certainly it's cooler in the summer, and there's lots of benefits for it. And particularly in downtown Paducah, I think it's important because Paducah is a river city, and certainly once you get through the flood wall, you interact with lots of water in the river. But it seems to me that River City should have references to water and the river throughout its downtown. And there aren't, I don't think there are any that I can think of in downtown Paducah. But having said that, they are expensive, and this is a public project, and they're expensive to maintain as well. So there's always a trade-off between the benefits of water features and their operational and construction cost challenges. But I would hope that, again, I'm saying this to you because ultimately it's a cost and operational responsibility that you guys will bear. But I think it's worth thinking about that, just because how the importance of the river is to Paducah, and symbolically having having water flowing, not just in the river, but elsewhere outside of flooding conditions. Controlled water, I think, is a good thing to that we should think about some more.
Eric, Bear, I'm not sure who's driving this. I think it might be Eric. Could you take the view to more of the 2nd Street perspective?
Sure.
As if it was from the Quilt Museum angle, maybe?
Yeah, let's see if I can start sharing this model. All right.
Oh, wow.
So this will give you, I just want to have everybody understand what they're kind of looking at, because this is the how the sausage is made. Maybe it's not as good to show right away, but this is what we use internally as a development team to understand the site, the context, the program, the building massing. These color codes are basic function of the building. It doesn't mean this is what the building is going to look like, nor will it be the exterior surface, nor will it be anything other than referential of what we're working with at the moment. So this would be, take this with a pretty big grain of salt. I think it's good to actually look at this as a development team with the city and share it with everyone. But again, to feel like we're still learning, we're not arriving at answers, we're still getting those questions answered. So this would kind of be the walk from the Quilt Museum to the site right now.
Awesome. That's a well, this is a great area for activity. Activity that perhaps is planned or organized, but most importantly for activity that can just happen as residents and visitors downtown walk along 2nd Street right here. Have has anyone, what would you, the public, or the people on this call, what would you like to see in this area when you were walking down this street? What would be pleasurable? What do you think you would like our visitors to encounter as they walked from the National Quilt Museum down the street to get to the Yiser Center? What
I
would
think
be
it's an important
the
point, Tamara. I mean, just to reiterate again, I keep saying this, I'm sorry if I'm being redundant, but you know, the idea of this development is not inclusive. I think that it will be a much more successful design and identity for the city if we start to tie these pieces together.
Yes.
You know, with the Quilt Museum, with the waterfront, with what happens vehicularly down here when you park your car to have lunch. You know, this other maiden alley that would, you know, connects you back to the Carson Center. What happens along this promenade back to Market House? Those are vital questions to keep asking and answering, because the more that we can pull those pieces together, you know, this really will start to become an identity for the city of Paducah. See if I can turn some of this on. Okay, I'm going to switch on it's a special switch. This is again more contextually designed, but much more visually rich. And I know it's kind of hard to understand, but I think it will help us have at least a better conversation about what we've been looking at rather than a static site plan. So this is again very schematic. Nothing is in place, but you know, we're asking ourselves, what are these outdoor seating elements? How is this parking, urban parking lot, urban lot going to be utilized from public parking standpoint to a program space over time?
So Eric, let me jump in here for a second. So this is a good example of things that we want to hear more from the community about. So the space that Eric's showing here, hopefully it will be a lively place. People will be sitting, eating, drinking, you know, eating ice cream. Somebody mentioned ice cream, but and this is the right place for that to happen. You don't want to be sitting in your umbrella table staring at the front of a bunch of parked cars. So conceptually, we've designed, Eric has designed these kind of low walls to break it up so that when you're sitting there, you've got a nice backdrop, as opposed to, I mean, there's nothing wrong with cars, but you know, so you don't want to be sitting in a parking lot eating your sandwich or drinking your beer. But you know, if we design them in a way that encourages, you know, again, you know, 3 or 4 musicians to play at some point, or having an art fair where there's, you know, 3 or 4 easels there and people drawing, I mean, that also provides space for other activities. So when we talk about things that can be used in different ways that aren't necessarily more expensive, you know, we don't want to design a art wall and design a performance shell and design a parking barrier. We like to try to figure out how to put details in that serve all of those purposes informally. So if they're not used for those things, people can just sit there and enjoy, you know, enjoy a place to sit, but also have the potential to do some other things. So this is by no means the design, but the reasons we're showing you this is because we're trying to explain the discussions we've been having with Katie and Tamara about making these spaces as flexible as possible.
Oh, very much so. And do you have any comments or on the trees? Because I'm not the only tree hugger out there. The other people have said they love they like the trees, they like the green.
Trees, and also I think stormwater management and like rain and, you know, kind of these ideas about the river are coming up in our chat function. And we have Julie Harris from River Discovery on the call. And so, you know, here's kind of a thematic idea that maybe we could incorporate into this about, you know, green infrastructure, river ecology, children and education and programming, how trees are incorporated into that, native plantings maybe, and really kind of starting to maybe use this as a lab, or, you know, for exploring those innovative ideas around ecology and stormwater management and urban trees and how they contribute to our environment.
Exactly. And Dana Armsdale had, I love this phrasing she used, how we perhaps maybe a Discovery Place, we could supply and maintain a river teaser feature. Isn't that a great idea and some great language there, a river teaser feature.
I love the comment also from David about maybe etching into the sidewalks or to the streetscape, kind of perhaps the, you know, the contours of the topography of the Ohio River, or maybe, you know, kind of our map of our streetscape, you know, something that kind of goes back to a mark or a visual indicator of Paducah and what makes us unique. So I think that's a great comment from David.
Yes, very great. The Terras, of course, have mentioned the opportunities for public art, and I think that really ties into Paducah's brand, is as a creative city. There are several, I think, many opportunities for public art. Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. What do people think about the gazebo, or a gazebo-like gathering, a covered gathering space along or near the flood wall, along Water Street, as opposed to the corner of 2nd and Broadway? What are people's thoughts on that, plus or minus? Is one better than the other?
If I could add to that, just before people answer, we've been hearing a lot about the gazebo, obviously, and it seems like there's two issues. One is the gazebo itself, or as you said, a gazebo-like structure, if it's not that gazebo. The other is what happens at the gazebo, the carriage rides and the music and little art shows and things. So, you know, we could have any or all of those things without necessarily having a gazebo, but we could keep the gazebo where it is, or move it, or do something that reflects that as a covering for that. So it seems like we're having a little bit of difficulty understanding if it's the gazebo is sort of a icon for Paducah, or is it the things that happen in and around the gazebo? Does that make sense?
Say that again, that last part, Barry.
The question is the gazebo as it exists important to keep it in its current location, or perhaps move it down towards the river? Or that's sort of one question. The second question is things that happen at 2nd and Broadway in and around the gazebo. Is it important to try to concentrate those activities there, or continue to have those activities there, whether there's a gazebo or not?
Okay.
Would it be okay if we pause and allow for people to speak? I think there is a lot of excitement and furious typing.
No way.
Yes.
There's only so much you can type.
Yes. So I think I
Yeah,
saw, was it Amina? Amina, did you want to speak?
Yes, I would love to speak on the gazebo. I think that was one of the first things that I commented on. I do believe that the gazebo in its current location is kind of a staple. It's one of the first things that you see coming down into the riverfront. So I do like the idea that we can, the current design that I believe I saw had it more open, which I do like because it allows for bigger bands and a bigger space for people to gather underneath it. I did see the covering for it, which I thought was completely closed off, but it looked like it was like the little, it wasn't completely covered, but it kind of had the shade coverings for it, which I think it would be better for, weather wise for it to be completely covered and have an awning, I guess, over it. I don't necessarily think that the gazebo has to stay in that location. On the design, with it being in front of the flood wall, gives it a better appealing site, I guess, for people that are in it and take, going down there and taking pictures, possibly moving the horse carriage to that area, which gives it a better site for the ones who are, in that area to either listen to the bands there, to smaller bands that will be playing in that area. So I do think it could be an option for it to be moved, but to also keep that corner as that inviting stage point of having, still bands and other gatherings right there at that point. Does that kind of answer his questions, kind of what he was looking for as far as
Yeah,
detail?
That's very
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah.
Amina, I really appreciate your comments also, because when there have been bands in the gazebo, one, it's quite tight if you have more than, say, 2 people. So your comment about it needing to be bigger is a really good one. And also, that interaction between the musicians and the public can be a little bit awkward, kind of given how the space is arranged. So kind of thinking through, where the music, how to set up the music, how people are going to interact with it, whether it's passing by or sitting and watching it. We can kind of take that into consideration about how this space can can function better for those purposes.
Right.
Does anybody else want to speak? You have lots of thoughts or want the opportunity to kind of talk through your ideas. We love having the chat because it also gives us like a written record of all of our comments, so we can take that back. But does anybody want to kind of speak up at this point in time on the gazebo, on the promenade, and maybe some of our other themes that we've been talking about?
Go ahead. Yeah, I do want to speak. My name's Kerry Donham. I live on Friedman Lane, and I think I have a problem because the whole design, it seems to me, is being done backwards. It all works around what Weyland has designed for a hotel and a mixed-use development. And it seems to me to be absolutely backwards. They're reducing 40% of the parking. No plans are being made that I can see for how to accommodate events like Paducah's, one of Paducah's biggest charity events, Barbecue on the River, how that would work here. I mean, I have no problem with the specific ideas as far as the gazebo, but take a look at that open space. There's no trees. The trees are small. In the summer, what's the temperature in the daytime? How many people are going to sit out in an open space where it's a hardscape in 90-degree weather and have the ice cream that Barry and Eric keep talking about melting down their hands? It seems to me that they had a good point. We need to tie the downtown together, the Carson Center, Maiden Alley, the Quilt Museum. But why don't you start from that perspective rather than jumping to putting a hotel in that's going to reduce the parking space. You're giving away 40% of really valuable city property for what? A total of $260,000, $114,000 for the hotel and $150,000 for the mixed use property. Is that about right, Katie?
So Carrie, as I mentioned before, the focus of this meeting is on the public spaces. So if you have questions, about the agreement or the hotel, I'm happy to talk with you about those offline. I do want to focus on the ideas that you've brought up about trees, because you're right, it is hot.
I wasn't finished. If you're not going to answer, I think you're dodging a question. I think that's an easy question to answer. If my numbers are right, or either they're right or they're wrong, you could say yes or no. But you can't, I mean.
Parking spots are public use.
The parking spots are public use. How many of the parking spots are dedicated to the hotel?
None. All of this is public parking. It will remain.
So the hotel is
public
not going to be
parking.
allowed to use the parking?
Carrie.
Don't talk down to him like that.
You're trying to patronize me. It's a legitimate question. The parking spaces are part of the public. If the hotel gets to use them, then fewer parking spaces are going to be available for the public. That is not focusing on the private venture. It's a legitimate question. Either you can answer it or you can't.
That is a legitimate question. And you're right. The parking will be used by the public and it will be used by the hotel. The beautiful thing about this is it's very symbiotic.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Let her finish. Let her finish.
But go ahead, finish.
Okay. It is very symbiotic because we have a hotel use that uses parking at one particular time, and then we have the general populace, which use the parking typically at a different time. And you can see that now. The primary time for hotel parking is in the evening because people are parking and sleeping in the hotel rooms. And so it's a great, actually a great mix for public-private partnership. And you also made another good point on how this evolved. And I think that's very, very important because we do need to be true to the roots of Paducah. And what I would like for you to look at on the design is the presence of Maiden Alley and how we basically pushed it through so that it does go out the other side of the block. And when this was raised to the developer, they were, well, I'm not going to say they were very happy about our request to extend the alley through their project, but they figured out a way to make it work. And so we share your concerns about it fitting into the fabric of Paducah. And that's why we gave them those pictures from how Paducah was developed back in the day when there were buildings on this. So
okay,
you are right.
Ma'am, I disagree with you on the point about hotel parking, because if people come to Paducah and stay for a couple days, which I would think any hotel would want, they're going to park in the lot all day for a couple days, and then they're going to walk to where they want to go. And I find it really disappointing, and I think it's really disingenuous to say these are not the people who are staying out in all, out by 24, who are just coming, sleeping, and then going to their next place. These are people who are coming to Paducah to visit. So it's disingenuous to say that the parking lots are going to be used at different times. The other thing is I'm truly disappointed in all the hardscape. We've owned property in Paducah for 4 years. We've known about this project for a long time. However, we moved from Chicago, and I don't see any, Chicago has been very innovative for the last, 30, 40, I don't know, whenever Mayor Daley II was elected, in making tree planting a priority because they recognize that it improves the quality of life because it reduces the overall temperature. I mean, it does a lot, and it's not like a hippy dippy tree hugger thing. It's a real thing. And I don't see any evidence. You guys are taking out a bunch of trees and not replacing them very much. And there's all this hardscape going in, and it's going to be hot as the dickens in this area in the summertime. And, you know, that's not going to keep a small town feel. I'm really disappointed that you keep using urban as a descriptor. This is not, this Paducah will never, hopefully Paducah will never be urban. People want to get away from that. If you want an urban experience, you go to Nashville or maybe Louisville, maybe Chicago, you know, but Paducah should not be going for an urban feel. And I don't see any integration of, you know, what we know about landscape architecture and buildings being put in here. I'm really curious if there've been any environmental studies about rain runoff and what's going to happen there. And seriously, I have lived in cities for the last 50 years of my life. Nobody wants to sit anywhere where it's all hardscape and the sun beats down. People do not sit in those spaces and they fail. And I don't see that being addressed here, you know, and you know.
We needed to hear it from you. I mean, I can only go so far, but we need to hear it from you. So I want to say thank you. And I'm not trying to be disingenuous. I'm being real. Thank you.
But and my final big point is that, you know, is that we're senior citizens. We can't walk as far as we used to. You are getting rid of 213 spots. You're going to have like 170. You know, you get the hotel in there and all the people and probably the hotel workers there because it's you know, you end up with about 50 spots. I know that you're going to put disabled in there, but I got to tell you, my friends and I can't walk the 2 miles that we used to from parking to where we're going. And so you're getting rid of that. And the other thing is, I was really disappointed to hear that Weyland just push off the noise issue saying, oh, that's basically Paducah's responsibility. Because if you don't address right now, this moment, or in the next week or so, or Mayor-elect Bray starts thinking about this, you will never have live music here, except for maybe an unmiked string quartet. And it's one of the things that's great about that on Barbecue on the River and other events is the live music. And it's just not going to happen. And I saw somebody say, you know, well, there's a bar that's real noisy. No, when you have 2 walls like you have here in the hardscape below, and then you have bands playing, it's going to ricochet everybody, and nobody's going to want to.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your comments. We do have about 15 minutes left, and we want to make sure that we give other people a chance to talk and to share their feedback, and to continue to provide their comments in the chat function. So thank you for your feedback. Let's see.
Very good feedback.
Where should we transition from there?
Well, can I make a comment? I appreciate the comments that we just made. I think some of the statements were incorrect, but nonetheless, this as we said, is a early stage. If the city determines that there needs to be twice as many trees or 3 times as many trees or 10 times as many trees, then the design will have that many trees. It's up to you to decide. So, you know, this is I guess there was some comment about whether this is an urban space or not, but this is a space that has, and I think the city and we have agreed that this should have lots of different things happening here. There's parking, there's development, there's residences, there's music, there's outdoor dining, and those things we need to all figure out a way to integrate those things into each other. So if there's not enough parking, then more of the space becomes parking and less of it becomes places to sit and eat. There's just lots of different ways to accommodate it, but it's really up to the city to determine what aspects need to be prioritized, and we're going to work on the design that tries to accommodate as many of those things as possible.
Katie, Can we hear from more people? Is that
Yes.
fitting here? Great. Uh, we've had some great ideas in the chat. Brian, would you, or you?
Yeah, so what's the process for asking do I need to raise my hand, or can I just unmute myself?
Just go for it, guys.
Go for it. We can hear you.
Yeah, so this is actually the first time I've been able to participate in a discussion with a broader group here. So, and I think Barry, you have emailed me before at some point. And I know Katie, you and I have talked about it, a couple others, but I just want to say to the broader group here, thank you for the work that you've done here. As the owner of 100 and 102 Broadway, someone who's invested a large sum of money in the last 2 years to bring a old building back to life. I'm excited and support this project 100%. You know, you're talking, you know, just for the sake of clarification, when we're talking about, I know there's been a lot of focus around the use of the parking spaces and then, you know, that being taken away from us. But I think that focusing strictly on that, I'm not concerned with it. You know, I sit out there even on the busiest nights of the year, Friday and Saturday nights. I can tell you that probably 20% of that parking lot is not being utilized. And I can tell you that because when I look out my window from 100 Broadway, I see the restrooms across on Jefferson Street. So, you know, that's why we're not trying to focus on that. But I think the work we've done that we have here in front of us, I think this is a great addition to the town. And the last thing that I'll say before, you know, I just kind of railroad this discussion, we are coming out of a financial economic crisis due to COVID, right? We are just now entering what we know is probably the worst part of it, and we don't have any end in sight. So for businesses like mine, the restaurants downtown, the small businesses, we don't know what that recovery looks like. And it's important for everybody here to understand that. It could be 6 months, it could be 12 months before things return to normal, but the recovery is going to last no less than twice that long, whether it's 12 months or whether it's 2 years. And to have someone who's willing to invest in a dilapidated parking lot that really serves only one purpose to me, and that is to have an event there all year round. I'm not ready to sacrifice this project for 3 days out of the year. So to be able to have some type of attraction like this could help businesses like me over the course of the next 2 years withstand the recovery to come. So thank you all. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, Brian. I'd like to, Darlene has mentioned a couple of fantastic ideas, and I would like for her to articulate on those if she would. Are you still on, Darlene?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank
Oh,
you.
great. Well, needless to say, for those who know my situation, you know, we did an extensive layout on the project, you know, back in January. I just think, you know, for so many years, you know, I was involved with the Main Street Board, as I mentioned earlier, and chaired that group, you know, for 3 years. And we talked about this kind of thing on numerous occasions. Many years ago, we've had some other design ideas and some, you know, projects that people had talked about. If I'm not mistaken, Dr. Bordowski's in the room. And at one point, I know there was a consideration of trying to do a second story sort of mall walking area over Broadway. I mean, there have been some fabulous ideas through the years. And I think this is just the culmination of something that we can absolutely capitalize on for literally the welcome station for the community. This is our archway, you know, our entryway to the downtown historic district. And I think it's absolutely invaluable to going forward in the future of the community and the historic district.
Wonderful. You had mentioned in the comments a natural play space. Where were you envisioning that as?
Well, I don't know. It looks like that there is green space on the far side of the schematic that we're looking at, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will say, you know, I know how we all hate to compare ourselves to Owensboro, but the Owensboro riverfront is so vital and so energetic. And one of the things that makes it that way is an award-winning, I think, play space that they have there, you know, for families and kids. So, you know, and it doesn't have to be huge. It just, I think it's, and in fact, I think Michael Terra or somebody mentioned, you know, an artistic way to sculpt something that would give kids, you know, a climbing, you know, space, that sort of thing. But I also completely agree with a few people who've made the comment, you know, that we absolutely need to talk about the next generation and the families who want to bring their children down there to have that interconnectivity with the community in that space.
You know, Darlene, this is Barry again. One of the things that is curious about as we think about this space, and I say we, it includes the city because they mentioned a couple of things that we hadn't thought of, obviously. But, you know, this is, I mean, we're talking about this block, and obviously we all want to see it activated, but it is also so the gateway to and from the Riverfront Park. You guys are spending a lot of time and money and effort and design dollars, which is great. So, you know, we certainly don't want this, I'm speaking my own preference, not we, but I would think that you don't want this space to be so over-designed that people don't think it makes sense to go see the river. You want them to complement each other, and that's where it gets a little bit tricky. So, you know, we heard, for example, I think Jim Arendt last week, you know, having some places to sit where you can see the expanse of the murals instead of being, you know, going from one to the other. I never thought of that. So that's different than a very active space here, because there may be active spaces along the Riverfront Park. So we just,
Oh, that's true. I don't know what that's gonna, yeah, that's a good point. I don't, none of us know, I guess, at this point, what that's gonna consist of. So that should be a collaborative situation between this design aspect and that design, which I'm sure you guys are looking to. Yeah, it's a great point.
Okay. Well, actually, Darlene, you foreshadowed. The Terras mentioned that, well, climbable play space would be great, but are Michael or Victoria on still? You want to jump in and describe that? There's so many, I can't find you. Okay.
Okay, we're working out the technical
I'm going to turn
things.
this light off.
Yeah, the public art, of course, is a key feature. We've got a big hole in our community that's public art shaped that we could really fill. And in this case, oh, there we are. Hi. And in this case, the idea of a water feature, rather than build in the ongoing costs and maintenance of actually having water as the water feature, we could easily create a beautiful public art that's climbable that is water themed. So we can have the water feature without having the wetness of it. Just a thought.
I think it's a terrific idea. I think one of the difficult parts about this project is, you know, the levee wall and the art wall is fantastic and so identifiable to Paducah, but to have a connection back to the river some way, that is another challenge. So to understand that maybe we could utilize some public art, getting kids activated, that's absolutely, that's really great.
I think another layer to that also, Eric and the Terras, is connecting fiber in with that too. So like maybe there's a weaving or ropes that have a nod to the river and can be climbed on by children and adults. And there's different ways you can kind of build a couple of different nods to Paducah's history and Paducah's culture kind of through that one particular play element.
I heard contours and I think thread and yarn and, you know, all that fabric art. There's a lot of blending of how to be maybe not in your face poetic about this. I don't think one should be so blatant. I think abstraction's always an interesting idea, but
I think an easy coordinated solution would be to take the central seating area that you have on 2nd Street, make that back into a green space so it doesn't have the massive heat sink in the heat, put the climbable sculpture there, and then chromatically include some element in that that travels back to this big Water Street green area in the construction of the brown pavers. So if you had, river colors that people could follow back to the river from the water-themed climbable park space on 2nd Street, that could be a great way to tie it in and maybe serve a bunch of different purposes.
Would be good.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
We have about 5 minutes. Does anybody else want to take the mic and talk, share your ideas?
Dana, you want to be brave? I hope she's still on there. Dana Imsdale, are you still there? Nope.
Oh.
And I'm trying to find, someone had a great
Oh,
comment.
I'm sorry. I am here. Through this meeting, I've become a lot more optimistic. I think we do have some great art ideas. This is not going to be just a development. I think it could be just so, it could reflect Paducah so well. It would be our start, since the inception of Paducah and some of the age of the buildings. This is a chance for us to interject the art community that's been developed, and the river that's never been exploited because it's always been industrial. And I just think it's exciting.
I like so many of your comments and ideas. That would you be interested in sharing a couple about where they would fit?
Well, one of the thought, people really seem to love the gazebo. I understand that. And the building that's built on that corner, maybe they could have a facade, a doorway or something that reflected the kind of a historic nod to the gazebo. But put the gazebo where it could be built bigger, or a covered space that would be more usable.
Yeah.
But we could do a nod to the gazebo in the structure.
Cool. Let's see. Looking through, there's so many great comments. Connie, are you still on here?
She
Never
left,
know.
Tamara.
Oh,
She had to
okay.
leave.
Aaron or either one of the Felkers, are you on here? Well, just wave your hand if you're game to share your ideas. I see the Framptons you want to share anything? You're quite the traveling family. Perhaps you have some ideas. Woo.
I don't mind sharing, Tamara.
Great.
Hello.
The floor is yours.
Okay, good deal. Well, I would anybody for the time. I think when I first saw this project, was really excited about the possibilities for growth for our community.
You seem to be cutting out a little bit.
Little kids. We go to Chicago. We go to down to 30A. These natural playscapes are just really big for us as a family. And there's just a deficit. There's a real deficit there I would also echo, I think we have some opportunities to integrate some incredible opportunities to integrate public art with this. We've talked a lot in the past about street art. And I think that there could be a current, there could be some easy connections throughout the city to kind of bring people back for our city. And I'm just grateful to be able to kind of voice that. And I look forward to seeing, what as a city we come up with collaboratively.
Yes, great.
It's 6:30. Anyone else would like to have some last words or feedback or comments for us before we wrap up?
Good meeting, Katie. I think we need to do more of this. Great engagement. So we need to get more people involved. Thanks everyone for your input.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much for coming, guys. We are recording this. We also have taken all of your notes in the chat function. So we're going to incorporate those, summarize those, and then, take the next step on design. Like I said in the beginning, this is not the last time that you will see this as it relates to the public features and opportunities to engage. But I think we're in a really good place right now in terms of this kind of first conversation around how we want to use these spaces. And so continue to look out for more information and opportunities to provide your input. We'll continue to update our website with more information. And you can always reach out to myself or Tamara or the Weyland team if you would like to talk with us further about any of these components.
If I could
yes.
jump in real fast, Katie, before you go, just to echo what Mayor-elect Bree said. Very good meeting, great job. I loved hearing all the different ideas tonight, and it was very helpful in trying to kind of ferret all this out. But just to remind the group also that there will be some focus group connections coming up here the next couple of weeks as well. So if anybody has an interest in participating in that, if they reach out to you, that'd be good.
Barry or the Weyland team, do you have any parting words for us?
No, just what I just want to reiterate what you guys have all said, that this is a evolving design, and it's your space. So as it evolves further, the more things that the community would like to see incorporated into it, we're designing it as part of the agreement, but basically we're designing it as with you being the client. So this is the beginning. We have, I think, until February to really get to a design that is formally submitted. So there's time to provide as much input as anybody wants to provide. And ultimately, hopefully, the community will get a public space that it feels proud of and will actively use.
One comment on the next door neighbor to this property, and that's, I bet 20 trees were planted on 2nd Street today from Jefferson Street all the way down to the flood wall. And it's really looking good, the 2nd Street promenade. So yeah, it's good. So I know we all want the trees.
Yes. Great.
More trees.
That's right. Lots of trees. All right, guys, thank you so much. Thank you for spending your Monday evening with us. We really appreciate it. And we will be in touch. Please be in touch with us also. All right, take care. Thank you, guys. Good night.
Thank you.
Katie.